Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Hi everyone, and welcome back. So you've got Alex here, and also Alex on the other side of the line. And so today's a bit of a continuation on an episode from a couple of weeks back, just on retirement, just kind of closing off some of the loops that we mentioned on there. And in particular, just going to talk through the value of annuities and how they can kind of impact and help with retirement. What you can do is some of your lump sum, some options there. Looking through um, also like the psychology of retiring. So it's quite a big shift going from being full-time work, potentially having, brought up children, to then potentially not doing anything. It's quite quite the shift. And so we'll be talking through that and some of the impacts. And that applies not just for people retiring at the standard age, but more, if you're an early retiree or part of the FIRE movement, I think making sure you've got something to retire into is quite important. So we'll be talking through that. Um, but yeah, Alex, I don't know if you've got any sort of thoughts on any of those points.
Yeah, I do and I don't. But yeah, good job with the intro. And it's nice to hear a different voice, perhaps other than mine, for our listeners. And annuities, I think maybe we just start and we do them in order. Perhaps. But an annuity, it's a term I've heard. If you ask me to explain it succinctly, I think I'd really struggle. So that's definitely more your wheelhouse than mine. But in terms of an annuity, like how would you explain it in a simple way?
Yeah, so an annuity is a I can almost say a constant stream of income is the way I see it. The the way it works with pensions is you have a lump sum or an amount that you give to a insurance company or a bank, and in exchange you will get a guaranteed income each month or each year, however you depend on however you want to do it, for life. So that it's almost an indefinite annuity in the context of pension. Um, they used to be really popular, and I think there was even a law in place that when you got a lump sum, you had to buy an annuity with it and kind of get financial advice, and they would buy you an annuity. And the reason being for that is if you get a tax-free lump sum and say you get, a sizable amount of money, say £100,000 or something, in the government's eyes, for you to not spend all that in one go and be sufficient and give yourself some income, usually to supplement what would be the state pension, you would be forced to buy an annuity. And the annuity rates, they tend to correlate with the interest rate, and the higher the interest rate, the better the annuity. Because of the last kind of, I think that the rule around compulsory purchase of annuities has since lapsed, so you can now do what you want with your lump sum. But and probably for the last decade and a half, it hasn't really been part of planning, retirement planning, because it was such low rates that. But actually now you're starting to see the interest rates return to a more normal level. Annuities can start to form part of a pension, kind of retirement plan. And the best way obviously is to, seek financial advice. Is what we were saying here isn't that, but what I've seen and how they've been used is you can either trade your entire pension pot for that guaranteed annuity, and so you'll get a certain amount every month until you die. An important thing to note with annuities is that they die with you. So unlike your pension, which will be, if you have money left in your pension, that forms part of your estate, and you can pass it on to your heirs. With annuities, that's not the case. And I think because of that, I've sometimes also seen this where people will have an annuity for like a very basic level of living. So at least you'll be able to pay your bill, like guaranteed kind of pay your bills, um, you know, kind of minimal lifestyle expenses, but at least then you're covered for the rest of your life for like grocery shopping, utility bill type thing. And then the remainder of pension and any other supplementary income is then used for the top up. So that is my whistle stop tour of annuities.
Sure. I think I get it better, but it, in terms of how I've kind of view it, and tell me if I'm kind of wrong or sideways on it, but it would replace certainly an income for you. So you give an annuity company a boatload of money, and
Hmm.
in return for that, they'll obviously do their own kind of process, kind of they manage risk, etc. with it. But they say you give them X number of hundreds of thousands, they will then give
Yeah,
you X amount of money per month, and they then send that money to you. So you
yeah,
basically get a payment in each month, which, to be honest, would replicate or perhaps replicate a salary or um, like into your retirement. It would be do a similar thing.
yeah, 100%. So the whole idea of them is, if you think most people will, their working lives, they will have received a regular income, and to suddenly go from that to just having a huge amount lump sum in a pension, having to
Mm.
then make the decision on drawing that down, an annuity replaces that and essentially just continues. It acts exactly like you have an employer paying you still. Um, it's just, yeah, provided by an insurance company as opposed to, and you're not trading your time for that money. They're giving you that, and you know, it probably, I should have had a look at some annuity rates actually, but you usually a 300,000 pounds lump sum. I mean, these are your life savings that you give to this company, and they will probably give you a 1,500, £2,000 a month salary kind of thing.
Mm. So I did look at some annuity rates
Oh,
whilst you were
of course you
talking
did.
earlier. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just I'll have a quick look. I'm not sure on the year they were made, but they've basically come from a website called Almond, like the nut, almondfinancial.co.uk. There's no date here of when they were kind of written down. So there's loads of these are massively kind of a lot of assumptions going on here. So for example, to provide the annuity estimates below, they've made assumptions that you're taking out your pension at 66, you're in good health, you're taking a lifetime annuity, not a fixed term one. Perhaps we look at that as well. You're taking the full 25% tax free cash sum from your pension pot, and you don't opt for any optional extra annuity features or benefits. So it sounds like it's like a kind of a basic kind of plan here. So this list is huge. It goes all the way from a pension pot of 30,000 all the way up to 1 million. So I'll just pick some figures out of it. For example, so say we know the average UK pension pot is about 80 grand or so. So if we take something like your total pension pot being 75,000, meaning you could have a 25% tax free lump sum of £18,750, leaving you the remainder, 56,250. That would give you an annual income of just over £3,500, or a monthly income is 299, 300 quid. That's not going to pay many bills. So if we were to think about a slightly bigger pot of the people on the fire path, for example, if we took a pot of 300,000, that would equate roughly to just less than £14,000 per year, £1,166 per month. If we then take 500,000, that gives you 125k tax-free lump sum, and then £2,007 a month, all the way down to say £900,000. That gives you 225 tax-free lump sum, 225,000 that is,
Mhm.
and that will give you an estimated monthly income of £3,488. So there's a huge swing. Like basically, the bigger the pot you have, the more money you're going to get out of it. Timing here is important. Say you retire at say 66, like this suggests. You take out an annuity and you live to 70. That's bad luck, like bad news. You're going to pay
Mm.
way more in than you're going to get out. That's how the companies make money and they spread risk. But if you take it at 66 and you live to 96, you're probably going to do them out of a few, well, many thousands of pounds, I imagine. So they'll factor that in, I'm sure. I don't think many finance companies are broke or in debt, but broadly, that's how an annuity can work. Alex, any of those figures surprising to you or not?
They give a bit of a higher income than I thought, actually. So that must just be the solid interest rates that we've got.
Okay.
But I think it shows you can trade. But I think it's the principle of trading part of your overall pension to like guarantee something, and that I think can and it arrives in a very standard way, like one would have been used to if you've been working for kind of 30, 40 years. So I think they're valuable. I think certainly, those kind of rates, by the sounds of it, I would trade some of my pot for some guaranteed income at those levels. Um, I think, as I guess if you're on like the fire path and the whole 4% drawdown, you can always compare, well, what would I draw down at 4%? What would an equivalent drawdown be through an annuity? Um, but yeah, as a bit of a sense check, but yeah, certainly something to consider if you're approaching retirement.
Hmm. For sure. I think that there's benefits to it. There's also
Yeah.
downsides. I mean, the downside, it doesn't form part of your estate. You can't leave it anywhere. It dies
Mm.
with you. The good part is it takes a bit of that, it takes a bit of the difficulty away
Yeah.
for me. It takes away all of that stress and headache of should I draw from this pot, from that pot? Should I sell some stocks at this point? Should I not? It just gives you that guaranteed cash flow that you've been used to for the majority of your life. So I feel like they've certainly got a place. It might not be for everyone, especially perhaps people not on the fire pathway, but I can really see it being of use for perhaps a slightly easier retirement financially. Um, I wonder if there'll ever be some statistics on people who have followed the financial independence pathway, whether they take them or not. I think we'll probably, being optimizers as we know, do the maths and just see how that comes out. But I think as well, we're much more likely to self manage
Yeah.
stuff like that because we'll have had a lot of years' practice.
Yeah. I think I tend to agree with that.
Yeah. So, okay. Anything else, Alex, on annuities you want to mention before we swap to like some ideas of what we can do with lump sums?
No, I think yeah, hopefully it's provided a brief explanation and given, there's tons of information out there online and
Mm,
websites and YouTube videos and stuff. And I think as, speak to financial advisors or insurance companies if you are, want to go into any more detail. But I think, yeah, certainly something to consider.
for sure. I think closing in on retirement, there's a real strong kind of argument there for some solid hourly financial advice.
Yeah.
So paying for a couple of hours of time by an expert in the field just to say, look, I'm closing in on this. This is what I have. This is what I want to be able to do. Does it all add up? Have I missed something? Are there any wrinkles here that I need to help iron out so I can actually live the life I want to live? You don't want to get there, crystallize a pension pot, and then be like, oh God, I wish I'd known that before.
Yeah.
And it causes all manner of headaches when a couple of £100 to an IFA somewhere could have really, really helped. So it's certainly something I would do
Yeah.
100% because I just don't know enough about those, like the difficult end of it. You can either
Hmm.
get it right and it'll be great, or you can get it wrong and it can be really hazardous.
Agree. And I think just a quick 20 seconds of before approaching a financial advisor, do just get all of your paperwork in order. Make sure you've got, you know exactly where your things are. List out your pensions, your investments, any credit cards. Like do all of that legwork,
Mm.
and then go there prepared. Because what you don't want to do is spend hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, essentially getting your stuff prepared and them doing paperwork before they can then actually give advice.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah, being as prepared as you can be will
yeah,
save you money in the long run.
yeah.
And just save, like, if you give, I've heard stories from other podcasts from like Pete Matthew on Meaningful Money, and he says sometimes people come into his office with like carrier bags full of old statements,
Ah,
and they just say, "Here you are, Pete, like deal with it." And he'll spend absolutely ages, hours and hours and hours going for every statement, and it's obviously it's got a cost. He's going to bill you for that time.
yeah,
So it depends how much they're charging you and whether you have the time and the inclination to do it. So yeah, be aware of that as well. Try and be as prepared as possible. It will help smooth the ride, yeah, as you go. So with that kind of done and ticked, we talked a little bit last time on the closing on in on retirement episode about 25% tax free lump sum, which is currently the case. So you can take the entire 25%. You can take less than that. It's not 25% or nothing. If you want to take 10%, 12%, 14%, yeah, you do that, no problem. Just think about it beforehand. So plan what you're going to do with the money, work out roughly how much it's going to be. Is it going to be 20 grand or is it going to be 120? Those are very different amounts of money, because what we wouldn't want you to do is have a boatload of money like strapped into your account, and then the lizard, the reptilian part of your brain is like, oh, I've got loads of money now. I've never had this much money in one place. You start looking at Lamborghinis and whatever, and it can be very expensive, very easy to blow the money that you have. And the term here is like a fool and his money are easily parted. So if you're not prepared with what you're going to do, there will be a lot of people out there trying to relieve you of that money, probably for products or whatever you buy. Stuff like that starts to be very, very enticing. So my suggestion here is think about it, plan what you want to do with it, take perhaps only what you need out, and then leave the rest to invest and pay you a monthly income.
Yeah, I think that's really sensible. I think there's always a risk of overspending that, and if you're not used to managing large amounts of money, I think you can quickly lose sight of how long it has to last you. Yeah, and another thing that we can use your tax-free lump sum for is if you've got one eye on potentially giving away some of your wealth to maybe some of your kids or nephews or anything, or family, you can start to gift some of that. So I think you're allowed to gift like £3,000 tax-free in any given year, and then any larger gifts you're able to give. And after 7 years, there is a bit of a sliding scale of what goes into your estate, but that then can ultimately become tax-free. So I think if you've got one eye on, say, if you want to help out your children to get on the property ladder, and you're planning on giving a sizable amount, doing that sooner rather than later, certainly from like an inheritance tax standpoint, can be beneficial. And I guess it's really just about having a bit of a plan when you go into retirement, when you're about to, you'll unlock all this money, and having a plan for that. And some people would love to be able to gift, but are not going to be in a position to, because they'd need to pay for day-to-day living expenses and kind of keeping the lights on. Others will have maybe more money than they thought, and then this becomes an option. But I think, as we mentioned before, speaking with having options and maybe going to a financial advisor with some thoughts and suggestions on that would help them evaluate your situation when you get into retirement. But it's certainly something to think of earlier rather than later, because you don't want to be in a position where you kind of accrued up wealth and then you're 87 and you're now in a position where you're trying to get rid of it because the inheritance tax rules have changed again, and you left it a bit too late. So I think it's just being mindful, and it is a bit of a balance, I guess, of initially adjusting to retired life, but then having one eye on the future and estate planning and leaving a legacy. I think is something that's probably often left a little bit too late.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Just being intentional with the money you have, like say you do want to help your grandkids or your, I don't know, your great grandkids or whatever. The earlier you give the money, the better off. Obviously, those people will be, the recipients will be. But also, say you give, for example, £20,000. You live 7 years after that. So if you give it in your late 60s, by the time you're 75, 76, there's no tax to pay on that at all, no inheritance tax. And it can do wonders for the person you're giving it to. And a lot of this is mentioned in Bill Perkins's book, Die with Zero. And he tries to talk about giving money with a warm hand rather than a cold hand. So you can see it being like, see its benefits and its fruition for the people left behind after you're gone. But in terms of that, again, there's another thing here about deprivation of assets in terms of like paying for care and trying to deliberately avoid inheritance tax. So if you're aware of those rulings and you give it early enough, you are giving away your assets, but you're giving it away that's within the rules, and you're not then going to face a tax penalty and also whoever you're gifting it to won't face a tax penalty either. So it's understanding the rules, using it to your benefit, and perhaps keeping a bit more money in the family. You can as well, as Alex said, give £3,000 per calendar year away as a tax-free gift. So if you have, for example, a child, you can give them £250 per month ongoing without any taxable kind of things happening. It's not going to trigger any tax rules. So you could do that to help supplement, I don't know, their going through university or starting to buy their first house or anything like that. So it's just things that are handy to know. And again, these things can either come from self educating, like you're doing now, or they can come from just having a chat with a financial advisor at that point. But I think it's best to be not kind of overeducated, but just to know the rules and the wrinkles in it of how you can use those things to your advantage. The last thing you want is to get to kind of your mid to late 80s and be like, oh, I want to give some of my money away to my children before I start having to pay for care. You give 99% of your wealth away, that's not going to fly during your financial assessment that what the council or whatever they will do, that it's just not going to cut it at all. They're way too smart for that kind of thing. Stuff like that just will go down as what's called deprivation of assets, trying to avoid paying for your own kind of care needs. Yeah, it just doesn't work, basically. So learn about it early, think about what you want to happen, and then use some of the spare time you have to make that happen in a way that makes sense for everyone involved, certainly you as well.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Yeah, really great insight. And yeah, the councils or the care providers will be so so on top of this, it'll be untrue. And but it's about,
Mm.
do it earlier the better. And I like that phrase of give it with a warm hand, not a cold hand. It's quite visual,
Mm.
isn't it? But very true.
That's not me. That's Bill
Yeah, yeah,
Perkins, guy with zero.
yeah. But it's a good visual. One thing I did want to ask, and is around, I guess, when you head into retirement, it's a big change from your day to day. You probably have been working for several decades, super busy Monday to Friday, probably bringing up children, um, and again, you suddenly approaching this point where you potentially your children will have gone to university or whatever, or left home. You are no longer in work, and almost your purpose for the last what could be 30, 40 years has then gone, or 20, 30, 40 years, I should say, is then no longer there. I imagine it's quite a big psychological shift, and almost to go from all to nothing, I imagine could be quite painful psychologically. Um, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Alex. I'd be keen to hear from a kind of the nursing side, kind of yeah, about that, and any tips for maybe avoiding some of those things, because I imagine there could be quite serious consequences.
Sure. So, like we've said before, our brains they don't like change. Change is scary for our heads, and it just means you feel out of control. And a lot of what's kept all of us alive throughout all of our generations is we've been able to maintain some semblance of control over our life. So we know what's safe and what's not. We have some instincts there to, not mess with a black and yellow snake that looks particularly dangerous. And you need to be taught that, like it's an instinctive thing that you don't do that. You don't walk on the edge of a cliff. You don't jump in the ocean from a boat or something, because it's just the innate feeling there is danger. So when we change from like big life events, like huge life events, so going from working full time, so you work full time for 40 years or whatever, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or whatever hours you do, then all of a sudden that stops and you've just got nothing to do. That's a humongous change with a very short, small transition period. So it can
Yeah,
be a little bit of a shock to the system to just get up on that Monday morning or whatever day it is and be like, oh, I've got nothing to do. Your body's woken you up anyway because it's used to getting up at 6 or 7 a.m. You're used to doing all those normal things that you do in the morning. You have coffee, you have breakfast, you stroke your dog, you say hi to your wife, whatever. Any of those normal things. I mean, that's pretty much what I do every day here. Um, but then all of that's changed, and your brain's like, actually, I don't really know what to do now. I've got time, and there's an old saying that idle minds lead to like the devil's work or something. I don't know. Our brains start to kind of wander in certain directions because when there's no uh, call it structure, perhaps when there's no structure to your
Yeah,
day, things kind of go off the rails a bit. You kind of go a little bit crazy because just anything and most things are doable to a degree, and your brain can't really focus on things, and it kind of freewheels into just the weirdest kind of thoughts, ones that you just wouldn't expect to have. And it's just your brain trying to rationalize what's going on because we can't, even though our brains can think about themselves thinking, it's really difficult to know how you'll feel in a certain situation. That's why we have such strong emotions around shock, loss, and joy because we can't prime ourselves for that. We just go normally la da da along, and then boom, this massive emotional thing happens. It can take you by surprise for sure.
yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think just on a few bits you mentioned, like on, I know I often like smile to myself when older people talk about like the structure of their week, and it will be if like, I'm going to the supermarket at 3 o'clock on this day because
Yeah,
because that's what I do, and it almost is like, and it's like, well, I put the washing out on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and it'd be stuff. It almost is quite trivial. You think, oh, like, why are you like that? And actually, by I guess it is putting in some structure and helping your brain have some of that certainty and control to then, even for the most trivial thing.
mm.
Um,
But that's exactly what it is. But imagine what happens then at 3 o'clock on a Thursday or whatever day it is. You can't go to the supermarket for whatever reason.
yeah,
It's like I know your car doesn't start, you miss the bus or whatever. Like panic sets in because you're just out of that routine and you're not in that normal throw of um, kind of expectation. So your brain, our brains, they are masters at predicting what we think will happen. So, for example, if you live a life like that, your brain can quite safely predict, like, this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to get the number one bus and I'm going to go 4 stops to Sainsbury's, for example.
yeah,
And you'd expect all of that to happen. If the bus comes along and it takes a totally different route, automatically you're like, oh, something's off here. I don't know really what's going on. You get this build up of stress, cortisol, and you get adrenaline, which is anxiety, because it's a different scenario that's unexpected. And then say you get to the Sainsbury's supermarket, and for whatever reason, it's been totally flattened, and there's just the guy there selling fruit. You'll be like, "What is going on? This is totally sideways." And it takes you some time to process that because it's something your brain can't predict because it's so far removed, and it's just out of that your brain's safety zone.
yeah. It is fascinating, isn't it? But I think what might, for my take on that is more, I guess when you really have to plan for what you're going to be doing in retirement, and I think even like having a not going from a 100 to zero um, kind of structure, and that maybe going part time or work a few months of the year or to volunteer every other weekend. Or I think having something to help you transition from that super busy life to a life of what should be more leisurely, but it actually could be quite stressful. Um, and I imagine also when you've got all the time in the world and you could literally do whatever you wanted, there's probably an element of decision fatigue. It's a bit like where if you look at Netflix and like try and decide what to watch, it's like to try and choose between 500 shows, you almost end up not watching anything. And I wonder if there's a risk if you are retiring, do you just, it's like, yeah, you could travel, you could go play a sport, you could do a hobby, you could go shopping, you could mend your car, you could infinite amount of things you could do. Do you almost just end up then being resigned to, well, I'm just going to sit in and watch telly because that's nice and simple and I know what that is.
Yeah, the rest of it's overwhelming, and it's like jam theory again. We'd rather have one choice than no choices. That's why, like Aldi, the supermarket, and Lidl, they work really well because say you want to go and you want pasta sauce or something. There's like two options.
Yeah,
Yeah, whereas you go to Sainsbury's or any other supermarket and there's like 50 different options. and it just becomes like overwhelming. That's why kind of brand psychology works. So,
Mm,
for example, if you get a particular brand of pasta every time, and there's I don't know, 15 other choices, you're just going to go with the one with the packaging that you recognize. It'll be the color mostly that you see, and you've had it before, so it must be good. And then your brain will move along and be like, get me out of this choice situation. I do not want to be here. And you just move down a bit and you do repeat and you do the same thing. That's why branding and like marketing messages, that they work really well, because they create this illusion of safety for the mind. And it's not so shocking, because you know that this particular brand of pasta tastes good. You've had it every day for, well, not every day unless you're Italian, but you've had it for a long, long time, and you know it's not going to shock you.
mm,
And that's always safer for your brain to do that than to do something like absolutely ridiculous.
yeah. No, that's interesting. And well, speaking of ridiculous, we
Mm-hmm.
could go on to the next wrap up. I don't know if you've got any other thoughts on
Yeah,
the retirement.
the only other thing I'll bring in is retirement's it's a difficult thing. So if you've got other people around you to support you through it, do that. I'm a big fan of um, kind of doing things, meeting other people, maintaining a social life, even though you are retired. And I think that's what a lot of people, it's certainly in the FI space, they struggle with, because like they're retired, we're retired in our mid 40s. All of our close friends are at work all day, so they're all, well, you can't, not that you can't go and see them, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like if I wander into your office and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here. It's Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
We're going to do this now," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm working. Stop it. It's weird." But have something that fills you with kind of enjoyment, like play a sport, pick up a new thing, go to a chess club, a book club, play tennis, or anything you want to do. Just make sure you plan a little bit, so your brain doesn't kind of like work overtime and go into a small state of anxiety. So it's something I want you to avoid. Lastly, bit macabre here, but there's recently, over the last kind of 2, 3 decades, there's been a huge increase in the rates of suicide and people who are 40. Where are my stats here? Quickly, it's I've lost them. Hold on. Apologies for my computer sounds. So if you are, I read it, and it directly correlates to retirement. So the highest rate of suspected suicide throughout the reporting period is those aged 45 to 64. And overwhelmingly, that's people who have kind of been through a career. They perhaps feel they haven't quite made as much of an impact on the world as they wanted to do. They perhaps haven't hit those life goals. And they're facing retirement that could be either brilliant if you planned for it, like we're suggesting, or terrible if you're sleepwalking into destitution. So that rate is 12.1 people every 100,000, which is quite a lot, to be honest with you. Those stats come from July 24. So we're suggesting here plan all aspects of it, the financial part, the health part as well. If you're not doing so, I really, you've got, if you're employed and you've got a job and you're paying tax, etc., I don't think there's a time where I would say you are too early to be planning retirement. So even if that's putting some extra money in your pension, it's thinking about what you'd like to retire into if you're close to that. It's thinking about where you live, who you live around. It's not moving to the Outer Hebrides and living in a tiny cottage. You're being battered by wind every day. Just pick something and make some moves to work towards that. And if you're not sure what you like we said last time, test it. Do a little bit of that. Take a long holiday to somewhere to see if you like living in Europe or Southeast Asia or in the US or Australia or whatever. But test it. Your brain and your body will tell you whether you like it. So be active in it. So make the choices rather than like having the choices happen to you. So be an instigator of your own. Does that make sense?
I think that's, yeah, should be put on a postcard. That's brilliant.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't tell you where I get these things from. I just talk about stuff, or you give me a prompt of some sort, and then my brain just like brings these things out, and I'm never sure whether it comes across very well or not. So, yeah, I don't
It
know.
does from my
I
side anyway. I think it's, yeah, but really good, yeah, really good tips and really good advice
Very
there.
kind of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just worth thinking about, especially your social circle. There are too many isolated older people. And if you are young and you've got aging parents, pick the phone up. They work both ways. And saying that, I can categorically admit that I do not speak to my mum or my dad as much as I should. So yeah, my mum is coming down to see me next week, which is nice. But I do live quite a long way away. I need to make more of an effort with that. Okay. Yeah, so we've added a new segment we've called Reasonable or Ridiculous. I'm still waiting on some kind of drums or music. I don't know, something that we can add to that. That's just my fingers on my desk. So, Alex, this Reasonable or Ridiculous is your idea this week. So, over to you to pitch that.
Yeah, so my reasonable or ridiculous for this week is kind of expensive moisturizer, and in particular, I guess I've always worn like just a normal moisturizing cream for being a teenager, and recently getting into the mid-30, anti-aging, bags are showing under the eyes, anti-aging creams. You can spend, as I've seen, from a few pounds to up to hundreds of pounds, which is mad. But I just wanted to get your take on. So I did. I see. I've trialed one set of anti-aging cream, um, and I'm still not sure if it's worth it. Which is like a vitamin or something, vitamin cream, like retinol cream, and it was it was £35 for a tube, which was a punch in the gut. But I thought I'm going to give it a go. I did a lot of research around it. I've still yet to make up my mind of whether it's reasonable or ridiculous. But I'd love to get um your take on that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, as with kind of anti-aging creams, we're told that you categorically should not look older than you are. Um, Perhaps I don't know, you're just working too hard, you're not getting enough sleep, etc. But a lot of this, I think, is marketing. To be
Mm.
honest, so go in with some open eyes. Retinol is the newest kind of thing that's advertised within creams. To be honest, I don't know enough about it to give an informed opinion, but I do have a retinol-based cream myself, purely because my brother told me to get one. And again, I don't really know why. My only thoughts are it thins the skin a little bit like a steroid-based cream. And then I think the science here is if the skin is thinning, your skin will recognize that and it'll produce new skin cells. And then new skin cells look younger than old skin cells, perhaps. And I think that's the thing. There are other ones that can stretch your skin, so it acts as a drying thing to stretch skin and with that idea remove wrinkles. But then you're constantly on this battle of stretching versus moisturizing. And I wonder, I mean, to be honest, Brian Johnson is the guy to talk to about this. He's a tech guy, but he's put a lot of money and time into anti-aging. The guy's 47 but looks about 30, so he must be doing something right. I've got another friend of mine who wears sun cream every day without fail, reapplies it multiple times. He's 29 or 30, but doesn't look it. So maybe it's that. I think, to be honest, it's a combo of all things. I'd be interested to think about whether you took a photo before this fancy face cream and then after to see if it's made any difference. I'd perhaps ask your partner, do you think you look any younger? I've no idea. I guess it depends how you feel. Do you
Yeah,
feel 100%? Do you feel $1 million after using this fancy cream or not?
I mean, it feels all right. I mean, I think it's probably more psychological, no, a bit like the placebo, but
Yeah.
and but yeah, I think it seems one of the things that they say, which is clearly a marketing thing, is it takes quite a long time for the results to show, like over 12 months, and you need to buy like two of these things a year to use it
Yeah.
up, which is obviously no surprise. But yeah, I'm still on the fence with it, but it is um, yeah, I will give an update in another
Yeah, I'd
episode,
give
maybe
it
how I
going and
decide
see.
when my cream runs out if I then buy another one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and they've got so many like long, complicated chemical names in them, but I'm not sure which is natural, which is not. But I mean, my own retinol cream is, I think it's 150 or 200 grams or something, and it's bright pink. I'm not even sure if it's meant for men, to be honest, but I mean, our skin is our skin, right? It could be
Mm.
similar. But men will have like one moisturizer. And then I saw a picture a while ago about like ladies having creams that have been specifically designed for like your left shoulder or something ridiculous because they're just marketed out like it's absolutely crazy. But the one I have is retinol based. It doesn't tell you how much retinol is in it. If there's like 1% or 50%, I don't know. You kind of have to. I don't think you can science your way out of it unless you really understand skin
Yeah,
and the active ingredients that are in there. To be honest, a lot of them could be just water based with some kind of firming agent and an active ingredient. I don't really know enough. So do the science experiment on yourself.
yeah,
Continue to apply it, and then really the answer is: will you buy another one when you're done, or will you buy a £2.50 one like me, and then see if you get the same result?
exactly. Yeah.
So in
Well,
terms of reasonable or ridiculous, I think it depends. If you're a multimillionaire, you want to spend 30 quid on some face cream, go for it.
yeah,
But if you're on, yeah, you're a pensioner and you've not sorted your retirement out and you're living off the state pension, that might be either,
maybe not.
food for a week or some retinol based cream.
Yeah.
I think it massively depends. But on the benefit of what you get out of it, I would consider it to be ridiculously expensive
Mhm.
from kind of a broad point of view.
Cool. Well, that is good feedback. And yeah,
Cool.
I'll need to leave and put my cream on now and
Do you put it on at
yeah,
night or in the day or in the morning?
nighttime.
Ah, yeah, a lot of them are nights, I suppose. But then do you
Yeah.
roll over and rub it on your pillow?
Uh,
Who knows?
yeah. Another.
Depends how much of it you apply. I'm just
Yeah.
imagining you falling asleep and just all of your eyes are just covered in a white cream.
Yeah.
Um, like you're wearing a Michael Myers mask. You'd be like, it's just face cream. Don't worry about it. Yeah, odd. So next time, I'll think of my own reasonable or ridiculous, and we'll go from there. But I think that's probably enough. Unless you've got anything else you want to say.
No, I think that's been good. Thank you very much. And yeah, thanks all for listening.
Yeah, and appreciate your time and your thoughts. Thank you guys for listening. And if you can, obviously be kind to yourself. Perhaps consider buying a night cream if you want. And if you can, in the next week, be kind to someone else too. None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.